on the line with us is Drew Johnson, a reporter with the conservative website dailycaller.com. Drew, welcome to the program.
Tom, thanks for having me.
And people can tweet you at Drew's Views, DREWS _views, VIEWS, or at Daily Caller. And, of course, dailycaller.com is the website. So are you a supporter of Donald Trump?
No, I wouldn't call myself a Trump supporter. I am heartened by the fact that he is finally coming out with some policy ideas, and some of them aren't as bad as I feared, frankly. So he's looking like, I won't say a reasonable alternative, but not the worst case scenario at this point,
okay.
I'd say.
You know, I'm glad I'm on this side of that particular table right now. It's got to be a rough season for you guys, and I shouldn't smile. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say Hillary's much better, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Donald Trump has said that climate change is a scam invented by the Chinese. Can you explain that to me?
I don't think that I want to try to explain anything that Donald Trump says. But I would say that some of his policies to address energy have certainly set himself aside from both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. But as far as some of his conspiracy theories, I can't explain.
Yeah. Okay. So you're with 100% of non-fossil fuel paid scientists who agree that climate change is happening, that it's happening because we're causing it, and that it represents an existential threat to the planet?
Well, I think that climate change is something that's happened for 5 billion years now, 6 billion years.
Of course.
So the real question, though, is that
I'm talking about anthropogenic climate change.
I understand what you're saying. No scientists agree exactly what humans' role is in climate change. And we can all say humans have an effect. And I believe that humans probably do have an effect. But it's hard to say that we should make poor people poorer, that we should limit developing countries from growing and developing and having the chance to have a good lifestyle, to try basically a scientific experiment that may not change the outcome of anything. Well,
I would suggest to you that maintaining in place the hundreds of billions of dollars a year in subsidies for the fossil fuel industry worldwide, $18 billion a year just here in the United States, and that doesn't include things like, you know, our military protecting shipping lanes from Saudi Arabia and all this other kind of stuff, that if you want to be keeping people in poverty around the world, that's the way to do it, and in the United States. The Republican plan for trying to stop solar energy and wind energy is stopping jobs. It's stopping the growth of our economy. And A, and B, I don't get how you can just kind of be so cavalier about the science. I mean, if you had cancer and somebody came along and said, well, you know, not every doctor thinks that you should have surgery for cancer or you should have chemo for cancer. Why don't you try eating beets for a week and see what happens? Would you seriously be saying, well, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe, we can cure cancer with beets?
Well, there's no scientific agreement on how much humans cause temperature variation.
There absolutely is. There's an absolute consensus. That's why the last Paris COP agreement was called the consensus report. There's a scientific consensus, and consensus doesn't mean majority. It means everybody.
There's a consensus among a few bureaucrats at a UN meeting who all want the same thing, which isn't related to.
Over 20,000 published scientific papers. There's an absolute consensus, Drew.
And there's 100,000 papers total. So if you're talking about 20,000 of 100,000.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you get away with that. I get it that the fossil fuel industry back in the 70s, when ExxonMobil and probably Koch Industries and others, realized that their product was going to cause climate change, which was going to cause more severe storms, which was going to cause sea level increase, and which was going to ruin the lives of hundreds of millions of people, that they could have decided to try to down-regulate their carbon emissions and come up with alternatives. And BP even played with that for a while. Remember when they tried to rebrand themselves as Beyond Petroleum in 2000, and it didn't quite work. But they chose instead to hire the same scientists like Fred Singer that the tobacco industry had hired 20 years before that to sow doubt in people's minds. And I, Drew, I'm assuming that you're not, enough of a sucker to actually buy this. Let
me ask you a question, Tom, very quickly.
Sure.
What is your goal? I mean, obviously, you've got policy solutions in mind. What is the goal of those policy solutions?
Do you know what externalities are, Drew?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at also. So
okay.
What are your goals?
My goal is to well, first of all, to stop putting carbon in our atmosphere.
Okay.
And for a whole variety of reasons. The climate is the biggest externality. It's the one that could render the entire human species extinct. But beyond that, you've got, just in the United States, somewhere between 10 and 50,000 people a year who are getting cancers from the burning of fossil fuels. You've got all this mercury contamination that is causing neurological damage all over this country and around the world, the result of burning coal.
Mercury contamination is extraordinarily down. I mean, there's hardly any.
Oh, you're right. You're right. And you know why?
Contamination.
You know why? Because George Herbert Walker Bush put into place cap and trade. And a lot of that mercury got sucked out along with the sulfur dioxide back when they put cap and trade in place to stop acid rain. And you're right. Mercury is down, but it's not out altogether. And
effectively, it's out in America. But let me back up to your point. I mean, the goal is to reduce emissions in the atmosphere. The easiest way to do that isn't by a socialist-style takeover of industry, isn't by all these regulations you want. The easiest way to do that—
I've not suggested either.
The easiest way to do that is to make these poorer countries that are producing so much in terms of emissions, to help them grow rich.
We've got the largest carbon footprint, Drew, and
it's simply not true. We don't have a larger carbon footprint.
On a per capita basis, we have the largest carbon.
India and China. So the way that you do this is you empower people by letting them grow rich enough to worry about the environment rather than having to worry about feeding their kids, making sure their kids don't get malaria, making sure that their kids have the opportunity to be educated. Then when you have the leisure that being able to make a certain amount of money—
Drew, how do you let people get rich? I understand how you let the Koch brothers get rich by giving them huge tax breaks and subsidies for Koch Industries, but how do you let somebody who was born in the slums of Bombay get rich?
I'm glad you asked. The way that you do it isn't by limiting their ability to have an industrial revolution. The way that you do it is by letting that industrial revolution happen.
I'm talking about the next revolution here. You know, we've got, if you put a price on the externalities associated with carbon, whether it's natural gas, oil, or coal, if you simply price those externalities, right now, both wind and solar are cheaper. So why not the same thing? Why not have a revolution in energy?
We want a clean environment. We want renewables ultimately. But the way to do it—
So let's just put a price on carbon.
No, that's a fine way.
That is a free market solution. You put a price on carbon that represents its true cost.
It's great if you want to kill poor people. Ultimately, that's what your solution is. But let me back up to one point.
I actually have done relief work in India. I've been in rural India with people who cook with twigs, and now we're going in there and putting solar panels in. They never even messed with the carbon economy. They've gone from twigs to solar panels, and that's
thanks to our tax dollars.
Thanks to the fact that the solar panels are cheaper.
Paid $400 billion in tax dollars building solar panels in other countries. It's crazy.
If it's choice between that or dropping bombs on them like George W. Bush did, I'd go with the solar panels.
The choice is killing poor people.
Drew Johnson at the Daily Caller. Hang on just a second, Drew.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You can tweet him at Drews, DREWS_views, VIEWS. And Drew, thank you for being with us.
Absolutely.
Good talking with you. We'll be back.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.